A key concept in lean startups is this concept of the MVP, the minimum viable product. And people get confused about this, and I think the really important thing to focus on is this: minimum viable product. It's not minimum product, it's the minimum viable product. And the definition that I have is the minimum product needed to validate your hypothesis. And this is very important. It's the thing that's needed to figure out whether your hypothesis about your product or company is right or wrong. And that can come in a lot of different forms, right? Because this is actually very vague and it's meant to be that way. So there's no formula for creating a minimum viable product. It can be, a beta version of your app or product, but it can also be things like, a landing page where you get people to a page that describes your product and see if people want to sort of take action to either buy it, download it, sign up for it. You can do, even a survey could tell you a lot about whether people want something or not, right? So if you're, doing a dating site for Apple fans, you can ask a bunch of Apple fans to see if they want to meet other Apple fans, right? And what we find is that the MVPs that we see that are successful really run the gamut, and there's a lot of sort of in between these very sort of basic examples. One of the more interesting examples is this company called Rent the Runway. And what they did, so this is essentially a Netflix for dresses, or for clothes, I guess, for like expensive clothes. Mostly for women, sort of renting dresses for events and stuff like that, instead of having to buy the dress for full price. And great idea, and they could have easily, gone ahead and, built the website. They could have, hired some salespeople, right, to sell it to other women, to other brands, and they could have, obviously spent a lot of money in the process. What they did was a little bit different. Instead of doing what a traditional web company would do, instead of building the product, they actually did a pretty creative thing. So they had all these friends at Harvard Business School, and they were, people in their sort of age bracket, obviously, and people with the same problems that they share, and they were potential customers, right? So instead of having to go out and acquire customers, they sort of used their friends as their original customers. That's kind of hack number one, which is they found customers without having to sell anything. The next thing they did is they didn't build a site right away, right? So they didn't go out and hire a technical co-founder and do all this stuff. They skipped that and they just bought dresses. I'm going to have a hard time drawing dresses like this, but here we go. So they bought a whole bunch of these, and they set up sort of this, quasi showroom in their dorm room. They were at Harvard Business School at the time. And they just invited their friends to come and pick them out and rent them. And essentially created sort of an offline version of this online model. And every sort of piece of assumption that they had about the business, whether people would rent these designer dresses, all of them were baked in to this model, to this offline model. And once they proved that hypothesis, which was, will women rent designer dresses instead of buying them, then all the problems were pretty much solved, because designing a website, designing a product, is actually a very small risk compared to the sort of basic risk of what if people don't want this thing that I'm selling, right? So instead of doing the sort of traditional route, design and build first and then prove the hypothesis, they went the sort of lean startup route, which was much more efficient and allowed them to get to their goal very quickly.